Beneath the world's densest jungles, entire cities sleep unseen. For centuries, these lost civilizations remained hidden, their true scale a mystery locked in earth and foliage. That all changed when a revolutionary technology took to the skies. This is the story of how airborne laser scanning, known as LiDAR, is redrawing the map of human history. By the end, you will understand how a tool of light is revealing societies so vast they force us to rewrite textbooks. How many people truly lived in the ancient Maya world, and what caused such immense cities to fade from memory? What forgotten networks of roads and farms lie beneath the Amazon canopy, waiting to tell their story? We are uncovering answers that challenge everything we thought we knew about the past. What does it mean to discover that our historical maps were mostly blank spaces? The breakthrough emerged from an entirely different world, one of satellites and strategic planning. To understand how we can now see lost cities, we must first look to the sky, not the jungle floor. This technology, called LiDAR, which stands for light detection and ranging, started its life as a scientific instrument. Researchers initially used its precise lasers to study the density of clouds and particles in the atmosphere. It was a tool for measuring the invisible layers of our own air, but its potential for mapping was quickly recognized. By mounting these laser systems on aircraft, it became possible to create incredibly detailed three-dimensional models of the Earth's surface. Every hill, every valley, every tree could be measured with centimeter-level accuracy. This made it invaluable for creating modern maps, and yes, for certain military applications where knowing the exact lay of the land was critical. For decades, that is where the story seemed to end, a powerful but niche tool for modern cartography. Then, a handful of forward-thinking archaeologists had a revolutionary thought. They were working in places like the rainforests of Central America, where even a few steps off a known path meant battling impenetrable green walls. A ground team could spend an entire month painstakingly surveying a single hill, only to miss the vast plaza or network of roads hidden just beyond the next ridge. The forest canopy was a perfect, persistent shield. What if, they wondered, you could simply remove it? They looked at LiDAR and saw not just a tool for mapping trees, but a key for digitally stripping them away. The principle is elegantly simple, though the execution is a marvel of engineering. A plane or helicopter flies over a target area, emitting millions of tiny laser pulses every single second. Each pulse is a flash of light that races toward the ground. Most hit the leaves and branches at the top of the canopy, and their reflection returns quickly to the sensor. But some lucky pulses find gaps, tiny windows through the foliage. They continue down, striking a stone wall, an ancient roadway, or the bare earth itself before bouncing back. The system measures the minuscule difference in time it takes for each pulse to return. By compiling billions of these precise distance measurements, a computer can then perform a kind of digital magic. It filters out all the returns from the vegetation, the modern rooftops, and the power lines. What remains is a breathtakingly clean model of the bare earth, a ghostly landscape of the ground itself. Suddenly, what was hidden for 1,000 years is revealed in stark clarity. The crossover was a moment of pure serendipity, taking a system designed for one kind of seeing and applying it to a problem no one had ever solved. A technology born from atmospheric science and refined for defense was now pointed at the past, transforming from an instrument of modern strategy into the ultimate tool for historical discovery. This set the stage for its first real test, a mission to scan a place everyone thought they already knew, where it would reveal a civilization of unimaginable scale hiding in plain sight. The true magic of this technology lies in a single, elegant principle: seeing through what we cannot physically move. Imagine billions of tiny, silent probes, each a pulse of laser light, raining down on the jungle from an aircraft flying high above. Most of these light particles do exactly what you would expect. They hit the top layer of leaves and bounce straight back to the sensor. This gives us a perfect map of the canopy, the green roof of the world. But a significant number of these pulses do something extraordinary. They find the minuscule gaps in the foliage, the natural chimneys and windows that light has always used to reach the forest floor. These penetrative pulses slip through, traveling all the way down to strike the actual ground, an ancient stone wall, or the slope of a long-buried pyramid. They then race back up, carrying with them a precise timestamp of their journey. The key is in the difference. By measuring the time it takes for each pulse to return, the system knows exactly how far it traveled. The pulse that hit a leaf 50 meters up returns much faster than the one that traveled 200 meters down to a forgotten plaza. When you process billions of these individual measurements, a computer can perform what seems like sorcery. It can digitally filter out every single return that came from vegetation, from the branches and the vines. What remains is a ghostly, incredibly detailed model of the bare earth beneath, as if someone had reached down and peeled the entire forest away in one smooth motion. This digital terrain model is where history reemerges. The human eye, trained by the software, begins to see patterns in the clean topography. A perfectly straight, raised line cutting across the landscape is no natural ridge, it is a causeway, an ancient highway. A series of subtle, rectangular platforms arranged around a central open space suddenly resolves into the foundation of a neighborhood or a marketplace. Clusters of small mounds might reveal a residential compound, while a large, isolated pyramid complex stands in stark relief. These features are often so faint, so worn by centuries, that a person walking over them would feel only a gentle slope or see a suspiciously straight line of trees. From the ground it is invisible. From the sky, with the veil lifted, it is a blueprint of a lost city. This process transforms the very nature of exploration. A research team can now survey hundreds of square kilometers in a matter of days from the safety and speed of an aircraft. They are not just finding one temple at a time, they are mapping entire urban systems, complete with their roads, farms, water management systems, and defensive walls. It turns a slow, dangerous, and piecemeal puzzle into a rapid revelation of a complete picture. The forest, which guarded its secrets so well, has finally met a light that can see through its eternal green shadow. But this raw data does not arrive as a finished map. Instead, it comes as something far more elemental, a swirling constellation of pure information called a point cloud. Imagine every single laser pulse that found its way back to the sensor, not as a flash of light, but as a single, perfect dot hanging in a three-dimensional void. Each dot has a precise address in space, an X, a Y, and a Z coordinate. One survey can capture billions of these individual points. At first glance, this point cloud looks like digital static, a formless haze of color. But within that haze lies the entire surveyed landscape, every leaf, every branch, every stone, and every inch of soil, all encoded into this ethereal swarm. The next step is where science meets artistry, as specialists begin the meticulous process of classification. Using sophisticated algorithms and a trained eye, they start to sort this chaos. The software, guided by human expertise, learns to separate the story from the noise. It identifies clusters of points that share the characteristics of tree canopy and filters them into one category. Points that form the gentle, continuous curves of the Earth's surface are tagged as ground. And then the magic happens. The points that remain, often clinging to subtle ridges, forming sharp right angles or outlining perfect circles amidst the natural randomness. These are the artifacts of human hands. This is where a lost wall emerges from the digital mist, where a terraced hillside reveals itself as an ancient farm, and where a cluster of mounds resolves into the foundations of a home. Once classified, this point cloud transforms into the ultimate analytical canvas. Researchers are no longer just looking at a flat image. They are inside a fully measurable, completely manipulable model of a past world. They can virtually fly at any altitude, swooping over causeways that stretch to the horizon. They can take a digital slice through the landscape, creating an elevation profile that shows exactly how a ceremonial platform was constructed. They can measure the volume of reservoirs, trace the intricate paths of irrigation canals, and calculate the area of agricultural fields with a few clicks. This process turns abstract billions of data points into a tangible, explorable space. It allows an archaeologist sitting in an office to walk, in a sense, through a plaza that has been swallowed by roots for centuries, to stand at the base of a pyramid and look up to follow a road to its conclusion. The point cloud is the billion-piece puzzle, and its assembly does not just show us where things are. It begins to whisper the story of how a civilization lived, moved, and shaped its world. It gives us not a single discovery, but an entire lost geography to interpret and understand. The Temple of Angkor Wat stands as a breathtaking monument, a symbol of a civilization's spiritual and artistic ambition. For generations, it was seen as a magnificent jewel, a sacred city set within the wild Cambodian jungle. But the true nature of this place was a mystery hidden by that very jungle and by the simple limits of human perspective on the ground. When researchers first flew a LiDAR survey over the region, they expected to map the known temple complex with new precision. What they found instead was a revelation that shattered all previous scale. The data peeled back the forest to reveal that Angkor Wat was not an isolated city. It was merely the dazzling ceremonial heart of something far grander. Stretching for hundreds of square kilometers in every direction was an immense, carefully planned urban landscape. The scans exposed a sprawling network of raised roads and earthen causeways connecting not just temples, but countless neighborhoods, village temples, and community ponds. They traced the outlines of vast, gridded rice fields and revealed an astonishingly complex system of canals, reservoirs, and embankments. This was not a dense, walled metropolis like ancient Rome. Greater Angkor was a low-density urban phenomenon, a meticulously engineered blending of city and countryside, all integrated by water. The analysis was staggering. At its height between the 9th and 15th centuries, this interconnected system formed the largest pre-industrial settlement complex on the planet, a sophisticated hydraulic society that managed water on a colossal, almost unimaginable scale. The empire's engineers did not just adapt to the landscape, they completely reshaped it. They built massive barrays or reservoirs that functioned as artificial lakes for storage and distribution. Their canals directed monsoon floods for irrigation and controlled water flow across the entire plain. This mastery of hydraulics allowed the Khmer Empire to support a population that some estimates now place close to 1 million people. The discovery redefined the empire not merely as a kingdom of powerful god-kings and beautiful temples, but as an unparalleled feat of environmental engineering and urban planning. This new understanding also cast its eventual decline in a different and deeply poignant light. The empire's incredible success was built on a delicate, man-made balance with water. Emerging research suggests that prolonged periods of drought interspersed with intense monsoon rains, possibly linked to broader climate shifts of the era, may have overwhelmed this finely tuned system. The very infrastructure that sustained 1 million people could have become a vulnerability. The lessons reach far beyond history. They speak to the profound relationship between a society and its environment, and how the greatest of human achievements must be in harmony with the natural world. The story of Angkor is no longer just about the rise and fall of kings. It is a monumental case study in sustainability, written across the landscape and finally read by a technology of light. Across the border in the dense rainforests of Central America, the laser's eye performed an even more staggering act of historical unmasking. The story of the ancient Maya, as told by early explorers, was one of enigmatic ruins of solitary stone temples poking through a vast, untamed wilderness. Each grand pyramid, like the famous structures at Tikal or Palenque, was seen as an island of civilization in a green sea. Airborne laser scanning dissolved that romantic illusion in a single, data-rich sweep. What emerged from the digital mist was not a collection of isolated sites, but a continuous, humming urban fabric. The great plazas and temples were merely the dense downtown cores of sprawling, interconnected metropolises. The technology revealed a landscape so thoroughly engineered, so densely occupied, that it forced a complete rewrite of the Maya narrative. Hidden beneath the canopy were vast networks of raised stone causeways, some running straight for dozens of kilometers, linking major centers like arteries. It exposed intricate grids of agricultural terraces climbing hillsides, turning marginal land into productive fields. It outlined formidable defensive earthworks and moats, speaking of a time of conflict and organized protection. Most astonishingly, it unveiled the ghostly footprints of countless ordinary homes, small stone platforms that once supported wooden and thatch houses, clustered around smaller community plazas and reservoirs. Where archaeologists had once estimated a city's population in the tens of thousands, the LiDAR maps now suggested societies numbering in the hundreds of thousands. The Mirador Basin in northern Guatemala, once thought to contain a few significant sites, was revealed as a cradle of Maya civilization, dotted with immense cities connected by a web of causeways in a system that rivaled the scale of ancient states across the world. This was not a civilization living lightly in harmony with an untouched jungle. This was a civilization that had reshaped its entire world, clearing, farming, building, and managing its environment on a colossal scale. The old idea of mysterious empty ceremonial centers, abandoned to a waiting forest, simply evaporated. The jungle had not swallowed a lost world. It had regrown over a managed, populated, and intensely used landscape. The new question became not why these cities were lost, but how such a vast and sophisticated society supported itself, and what complex factors, including periods of environmental strain and social challenges, eventually led to its transformation. The laser did not just find lost buildings, it found a forgotten scale of human endeavor, revealing the Maya not as mysterious keepers of esoteric knowledge, but as some of history's most ambitious urban planners and landscape engineers. The story of the Musquisha jungle is one of whispered legends and impossible terrain. For centuries, explorers spoke of a lost paradise hidden deep within the Honduran rainforest, a place called the White City or the City of the Monkey God. It was a tale of a magnificent civilization that vanished, leaving behind a city of white stone gleaming in the green darkness. Expeditions launched for decades, some ending in hardship, others simply swallowed by the sheer, overwhelming density of the wilderness. The Musquisha does not give up its secrets easily. Its canopy is a near-solid ceiling, its ravines are treacherous, and its remoteness is absolute. The legend began to seem like just that, a beautiful story. Then the lasers flew. A scientific team partnering with Honduran authorities conducted an airborne LiDAR survey over a promising region. As the data was processed and the digital forest was stripped away, the analysts saw something astonishing. Amidst the natural contours of hills and river valleys were clear, unnatural shapes. There were straight lines forming perfect rectangles arranged around central plazas. There were the unmistakable silhouettes of pyramidal mounds and the outlines of what appeared to be terraces and canals. The legend had coordinates. This was the critical turning point. Previous searches were exercises in hope, plunging into the green unknown with little more than a vague direction. Now the ground expedition had something unprecedented, a literal treasure map. The team used the LiDAR model as their guide, navigating directly to the precise locations of the largest structures. They did not have to cut blindly through miles of jungle. They walked with purpose toward a known destination. What they found was a moment frozen in time. They emerged into a series of open plazas lined with earth and stone platforms. They documented a pyramid, partially collapsed but still imposing. Most strikingly, they discovered a cache of ceremonial stone artifacts, meticulously carved vessels and figures, left in place as if awaiting a ritual that never resumed. The site was pristine, untouched by looters, a silent snapshot of a final day centuries ago. The discovery was more than just the confirmation of a city. It was the validation of an entire new paradigm for exploration. LiDAR had done what generations of adventurers could not. It had rendered an impenetrable landscape transparent. It transformed the search from a gamble into a targeted investigation. The technology did not just find a lost city, it proved it could find any lost city, providing the scientific confidence to launch expeditions with a high certainty of success. The myth of the monkey god was now a mapped archaeological zone, its story ready to be studied not through rumor, but through the careful analysis of its plazas and artifacts. This case cemented LiDAR's role not as a mere supporting tool, but as the primary scout for the 21st century, a digital pathfinder that turns the world's final blank spaces into places waiting to be understood. The true power of this technology is not limited to revealing lost cities of stone. Some of its most profound insights come from landscapes that seem, at first glance, utterly ordinary. In the rolling green hills of the United Kingdom and Ireland, airborne laser scanning performs a different kind of magic. Here, there are no towering pyramids to discover. Instead, the lasers uncover the ghostly impressions of ancient lives worked directly into the soil. Flying over modern farmland and pasture, LiDAR maps subtle earthworks invisible to the naked eye. It reveals the faint ridges and furrows of prehistoric field systems, organized plots where communities grew their food thousands of years ago. It outlines the circular banks of livestock enclosures where animals were kept safe at night. It traces the footprints of roundhouses and the hollowed paths of trackways worn by generations of feet. These features are not dramatic monuments. They are the everyday architecture of survival, the practical marks of ordinary people shaping their world season after season, century after century. For a long time, these landscapes told a fragmented story. Archaeologists might study a single hill fort or a ceremonial stone circle, but the broader context of how people lived and farmed around it remained a blur. The grand sights of the elites were visible, while the world of the common farmer was literally flattened by centuries of plowing and forgotten. LiDAR changes that equation completely. By rendering these subtle patterns visible across vast areas, it allows researchers to see the full tapestry. They can now observe how a field system organized itself around a water source, how settlements clustered along a ridge for defense or sun, and how trackways connected communities to their fields and to each other. This is history from the ground up. It democratizes the past, shifting our focus from the singular king or priest to the countless families whose labor sustained entire civilizations. This comprehensive view answers deeper questions about social organization and land use. By analyzing the size and layout of field systems, experts can make informed estimates about population density and agricultural output. The arrangement of enclosures and homes hints at how wealth or status was distributed within a community. It shows us not just where people built monuments, but where they lived, worked, and managed their most vital resource, the land itself. The story these landscapes tell is one of gradual, persistent change. They are not the record of a single golden age, but a complex palimpsest, a manuscript written and rewritten over millennia. One era's field boundaries might cut across an earlier generation's burial mounds, showing how land use evolved. A medieval sheep enclosure might sit atop a Bronze Age settlement, a quiet testament to the enduring human need to shape the environment. This subtle, layered history, once hidden in plain sight, is now a new frontier for understanding. It reminds us that civilization is built as much on the quiet rhythm of the plow as on the ambition of the pyramid. This new perspective reveals a third, transformative principle of the technology, the power of scale. For over a century, archaeology often resembled a series of brilliant spotlights. A team would choose a promising mound or temple complex, set up camp, and excavate it with immense care. They would uncover stunning artifacts and learn intricate details about that specific place. But the light rarely fell on the spaces between. The connections, the relationships, the broader systems that made a civilization function remained in shadow. Airborne laser scanning changes that fundamental approach. It enables what is called landscape archaeology, but on a scale once thought impossible. Now, a single survey can capture not just one site, but an entire river valley, a coastal plain, or a vast stretch of jungle encompassing hundreds of square kilometers. This is not merely finding more dots on the map, it is finally seeing the lines that connect them. With this regional canvas, researchers can analyze how ancient people interacted with their whole world. They can trace the logic of settlement, seeing how communities positioned themselves near reliable water sources or on defensible high ground. They can follow a raised causeway from a major ceremonial center, watching as it branches out to smaller villages and farmsteads, revealing a hierarchy of connection and control. What once looked like isolated pyramids in the wilderness now appear as central nodes in a vast network of roads. This systemic view answers questions that a single excavation never could. It reveals trade routes not by finding a single imported part, but by mapping the engineered paths that logically link resource areas to population centers. It exposes defensive strategies by showing how a series of fortifications were placed along a ridge to control movement through a pass. It uncovers agricultural planning by revealing how terraced fields and irrigation canals were integrated across an entire watershed to feed a population. The shift is profound. Instead of asking what happened at this temple, we can now ask, how was this entire society organized? Where were its economic and cultural boundaries? How did it manage its most critical resources like food and water across generations? This is LiDAR's greatest intellectual gift. It turns a collection of fascinating dots into a living, breathing web of human activity. We move from studying artifacts to understanding systems, from chronicling events to comprehending a civilization's enduring relationship with its land. This panoramic view suggests that our ancestors saw their world not as a collection of separate places, but as a single, interconnected entity, a truth we are only now beginning to see ourselves. This symphony of discovery requires a precisely tuned orchestra of machines. For the broadest surveys, the workhorse is a manned aircraft, often a small plane or helicopter, flying in a meticulous back-and-forth grid pattern over hundreds of square kilometers. On board sits a heavy, sophisticated scanner, a technological marvel that fires its millions of laser pulses downward with relentless precision. This method is the grand-scale approach, perfect for revealing the sprawling outlines of an empire like Angkor or the Maya lowlands. But for tighter spaces, steep ravines, or sites where every stone detail matters, a different conductor takes over. Drones, buzzing quietly overhead, now carry lightweight LiDAR units. These agile platforms can fly lower and slower, capturing data with such fine resolution that individual steps on a pyramid or the carving on a fallen monument can be distinguished. They are the surgical instruments of aerial archaeology, yet the lasers themselves would be useless without a perfect sense of place. Each pulse is tagged with a hyper-accurate timestamp and, crucially, linked to exact positioning data from onboard global positioning system receivers and inertial measurement units. These systems track the aircraft's every subtle tilt, roll, and bump in real time, ensuring that when a laser hits a stone wall deep in the jungle, we know its exact geographic coordinates on our planet. It is this flawless marriage of aviation, laser physics, and geospatial engineering that builds the raw material of revelation. The flight itself, though, is only the beginning. The true narrative emerges not in the air, but in the quiet hum of a server room. Here, the torrent of raw data, that immense point cloud of billions of individual returns, begins its transformation. Specialists use powerful software to classify and filter, separating the signal of human history from the noise of the natural world. This digital sculpting is a painstaking process of interpretation, where an archaeologist's trained eye guides the algorithm, asking it to highlight the straight lines, the right angles, the organized patterns that nature simply does not create. What emerges from this process is more than a map. It is a new landscape of inquiry, a clean slate upon which the stories of forgotten civilizations can finally be written. The raw point cloud is a universe of potential, but it remains a silent one. To hear its stories, archaeologists must learn its digital language. This is where the journey moves from the skies to the screen, from day to collection to deep interpretation, using a suite of tools that feel more like artistic and scientific instruments than traditional shovels. The first step is classification, a process of teaching the software to recognize what it is seeing. Guided by the archaeologist's expertise, algorithms learn to distinguish between the chaotic scatter of tree canopy points and the smoother, more connected clusters that represent the bare earth. This act of digital sorting is the essential foundation, peeling away the modern world to expose the ancient ground plane. With a clean terrain model, the real detective work begins. Here, visualization is everything. A technique called hill shading is perhaps the most powerful tool in the digital kit. It works by simulating the sun's light across the landscape from a chosen angle. By adjusting this virtual sun, a researcher can cast long, revealing shadows. A slope that appears perfectly smooth under a high noon sun might, with a low-angled light, suddenly reveal the faint, straight ridge of a buried wall or the gentle terracing of an agricultural field. It is a revelation born from contrast, making the invisible subtly apparent. Other filters can color-code the landscape by elevation, painting low-lying areas in cool blues and higher ridges in warm reds, instantly highlighting plateaus that were likely chosen for settlements or the winding paths of ancient riverbeds now dry. The toolkit grows even more sophisticated with automated detection. Researchers can train algorithms to search for specific shapes, the geometric signatures of human activity. The software can scan thousands of square kilometers, flagging every potential rectangular platform, circular mound, or linear feature that matches certain parameters. This does not replace the archaeologist's eye, but it acts as an tireless assistant, narrowing a search from an overwhelming expanse to a curated list of promising targets. It is a partnership between human intuition and machine precision, where the computer handles the brute force scanning and the expert provides the contextual wisdom to interpret the results. This entire process is a form of non-invasive excavation. Instead of physically removing layers of soil, the archaeologist manipulates layers of light and shadow, elevation and slope. They can take a virtual slice through a pyramid to understand its construction phases without ever touching a stone. They can measure the volume of a reservoir or trace the full length of a canal system with a few clicks. It is archaeology at the speed of thought, allowing for rapid hypothesis testing and pattern recognition across a scale that ground survey could never achieve. In this digital space, a story emerges not from a single artifact, but from the relationship between 100 subtle features across a forgotten landscape, waiting for a trained mind to connect them. The digital terrain map is a landscape of whispers, not shouts. It presents a world of subtle shapes where the story of human hands must be carefully separated from the grand, indifferent artistry of geology. A long, straight ridge cutting across a hillside could be an ancient defensive wall, a processional way built by a forgotten king. Or it could simply be a natural rock outcrop, a spine of stone laid down by tectonic forces millions of years before the first human walked there. The LiDAR model reveals everything with perfect impartiality. A modern logging track and a pre-Columbian causeway can appear as identical scars on the Earth's skin. This is the first great challenge of interpretation, the need for a discerning eye that understands both culture and land. Archaeologists become detectives of topography, analyzing the context of each feature. Does that cluster of perfectly square platforms sit near a water source and align with known stars, suggesting a ceremonial purpose? Or are the shapes more irregular, scattered across arable land, hinting at the foundations of a farming village? The data provides the form, but human expertise must provide the narrative. It shows the shape of things, but not their substance or their story in time. A raised rectangular platform might be the foundation of a noble's house from 800 years ago, a communal granary from 500 years later, or even a soil deposit from 20th century farming. The laser pulse cannot tell us what lies beneath that surface shape or when it was built. This fundamental limitation introduces the critical, irreplaceable next step, a process called ground truthing. The most stunning digital discovery is only a hypothesis until a team walks onto the actual site. They examine the soil, search for fragments of pottery or tools, take samples for scientific dating. This boots-on-the-ground work confirms the feature's origin, pins it to a specific century, and breathes life into the pixels. In this way, LiDAR does not replace the traditional archaeologist, it transforms their role. It turns a generation of explorers who once had to search for the needle in the haystack into experts who are handed a map with the needle's location clearly circled. They can now spend their time, resources, and intellectual energy not on the exhausting search, but on the deep, meaningful work of understanding what they have found. The technology guides the trowel with unprecedented precision, making every excavation more deliberate, every question more pointed. It is the ultimate partnership between the soaring perspective of technology and the grounded, tactile wisdom of human curiosity, each making the other immeasurably more powerful. Yet this power to reveal is matched by an urgent responsibility to preserve. The very landscapes LiDAR unveils are often in a race against time, facing threats more relentless than centuries of jungle growth. Modern deforestation clears ancient fields in days, urban expansion paves over forgotten suburbs, and the shifting patterns of a changing climate erode delicate earthworks. In this fragile moment, the laser's eye becomes more than a tool of discovery. It becomes an instrument of salvation. By flying over a threatened area and capturing its every contour, the technology creates something profound, a perfect, permanent digital twin. This three-dimensional record freezes a landscape in time, archiving its current state with millimeter precision before the first bulldozer arrives or the next season's rains wash another layer of history away. This record is far more than a map, it is a baseline for guardianship. Conservationists can use it to monitor minute changes over time, detecting the early signs of erosion or unauthorized digging. Planners can consult it to design infrastructure that avoids sensitive archaeological zones. And in the most sobering scenario, if a site is ever lost to development or natural forces, this digital archive remains. It allows for detailed study long after the physical place is gone, and even enables the possibility of virtual reconstruction, letting future generations walk through a plaza that exists only in data. In this vital role, LiDAR transcends archaeology. It becomes a digital time capsule, a fail-safe for memory. It ensures that the knowledge of how a civilization laid out its world, the genius of its engineering, and the pattern of its daily life is never erased. The technology does not just find lost cities, it now saves them, capturing their echo so that even in silence, their story continues to speak. The Amazon rainforest has long been portrayed as the ultimate untouched wilderness, a sea of green where only small, scattered tribes lived lightly upon the land. This image of a pristine, empty jungle is now being permanently rewritten. From the air, lasers are painting a different picture entirely, one of deep history and deliberate design. In regions of Brazil and Bolivia, the digital terrain models reveal landscapes etched with astonishing geometry. There are precise rings of ditches, some over 1,000 feet across, forming perfect circles or octagons. There are clusters of raised earthen platforms, arranged in clear alignments, connected by straight, sunken roads that cut through the understory. These are not the random works of nature. They are the organized footprints of a forgotten society. The scale is breathtaking, suggesting networks of interconnected settlements, a kind of garden city woven into the very fabric of the forest. For generations, the dominant narrative held that the Amazon's poor, acidic soil could never support large, permanent populations or complex agriculture. The discoveries from the air directly challenge that assumption. They point toward communities that did not just live in the forest, but actively shaped it over generations. On the ground, archaeologists find supporting evidence in patches of remarkably fertile soil known as terra preta, or dark earth. This is not natural, it is anthropogenic, literally meaning human-made. Through a sustained practice of adding charcoal, organic waste, and pottery shards to the ground, ancient Amazonians engineered pockets of rich, enduring fertility. These dark earth gardens were likely the agricultural heart of their settlements, allowing for the cultivation of crops that could sustain sizable, stable communities. The LiDAR patterns now show us the grand layout that organized this life. The geometric earthworks may have served ceremonial, defensive, or social purposes, creating central plazas and defined spaces within the forest. The raised platforms kept homes dry during seasonal floods and provided foundations for communal longhouses. The straight roads facilitated movement and trade between these garden cities across what was clearly a managed, productive landscape. This transforms our understanding of the Amazon from a passive backdrop to an active partner in civilization. It appears these societies practiced a sophisticated form of agroforestry, cultivating useful trees like palms and fruit bearers, while enriching the soil to create a productive, park-like environment. They were not conquerors of the wilderness, but masterful gardeners on a continental scale. The laser's revelation is therefore a dual correction. It dismantles the myth of an empty, timeless jungle, revealing a past filled with innovation and dense habitation. Simultaneously, it challenges the outdated idea that environmental stewardship and large-scale society are incompatible. These ancient people thrived by enhancing the forest's bounty, not by clearing it away. Their legacy, written in dark earth and geometric mounds, offers a profound lesson in sustainable living, a blueprint for harmony with the world's greatest rainforest that we are only beginning to decode. This rewriting of history extends far beyond the tropics, reaching into the very heart of what we thought was familiar. Across the rolling farmlands and dense woodlands of Europe, the same quiet revolution is underway, proving that some of our greatest secrets are buried not in remote jungles but beneath our own feet. For generations, archaeologists believed the landscapes of England, Germany, and France were thoroughly documented. their stories largely told. Airborne laser scanning is proving that assumption dramatically wrong, revealing a hidden continent of ancient activity waiting just below the surface. In England, one of the most iconic monuments in the world is Hadrian's Wall, a stone barrier built by the Romans nearly 2,000 years ago. We have maps of it, we walk along its restored sections, and we study its forts. Yet from the ground, the wall is a fragmented thing, broken by time and later construction. When LiDAR surveyed its entire length, it did something remarkable. It stitched those fragments back into a single, coherent line across the countryside. The technology traced the wall's subtle, eroded course through plowed fields and under modern roads, sections long lost to the naked eye. More astonishingly, it revealed the ghostly outlines of temporary marching camps nearby, where Roman legions stopped to rest during construction, their tidy rectangular shapes preserved only as faint discolorations in the soil. These were not just new dots on a map, they were moments frozen in the process of empire building, visible only from the air. The revelations grow even more profound in the forested highlands of Central Europe. Here, beneath dense canopies of oak and beech, LiDAR has unveiled the colossal scale of Celtic civilization. What appeared as mere hills or confusing bumps in the terrain are now clearly massive fortified settlements known as oppida. These were not simple hill forts but sprawling pre-urban centers, some encompassing hundreds of hectares within their intricate ramparts and ditches. The scans show their sophisticated internal layouts, with distinct districts for crafts, ceremony, and living connected by roadways. This was the world of the ancient Gauls, a society of complex engineering and large-scale organization, its true magnitude hidden until the digital forest was lifted. Beyond these grand forts, the lasers trace something equally telling: the quiet geometry of daily survival. Across vast areas, they map the ridge and furrow patterns of medieval open field farming, a testament to the communal agricultural life of the Middle Ages. They reveal prehistoric field systems from the Bronze Age, their boundaries fossilized in the soil, showing how land was divided and worked for millennia. Each of these discoveries alone is valuable, but the true power of LiDAR is in how it connects them. It allows us to see not just a Roman camp or a Celtic wall, but the entire cultural landscape. We can observe how a medieval village was built directly atop a Roman road, which itself was laid over an even older prehistoric trackway. We witness the long conversation between people and place, a continuous story of adaptation and reuse written across the same hills and valleys. This continuous view shatters the idea of history as isolated chapters. Instead, we see a living, layered manuscript of human endeavor, from the first farmers of the Neolithic to the legions of Rome and the peasants of the Dark Ages, all leaving their subtle marks on the same earth. It proves that in landscapes we have walked for centuries, history was never truly lost. It was merely waiting for a new way of seeing. The true potential of this digital revolution is unlocked only when its maps are shared. For decades, major discoveries were often the domain of a few specialized teams working in remote locations, their findings slowly trickling into academic journals. The sheer volume of data from a single LiDAR survey, however, is far too vast for any one group to fully analyze. This reality has sparked a powerful shift toward open access, a fifth principle transforming the field: the democratization of discovery. Governments, universities, and research institutions are now uploading these immense point clouds and terrain models to public online portals, making them freely available to anyone with an internet connection. Suddenly, the digital landscapes of ancient empires and forgotten settlements are not locked in a lab, but open for exploration on a home computer. This is more than just public outreach. It is a fundamental reimagining of who gets to participate in the act of finding history. Amateur archaeologists, local historians, students, and simply curious individuals from all walks of life can now become digital explorers. They can download the data, learn to use the same visualization tools as the professionals, and fly virtually over landscapes they may never physically visit. This global community of citizen scientists brings a powerful new resource to the table: time and a fresh perspective. Where a research team might have a few months to analyze a dataset, thousands of eyes can scrutinize it indefinitely, each person bringing their own unique knowledge of local geography, historical records, or simply a patient, observant eye. The results have been astounding. In Norway, a hobbyist studying public LiDAR maps of farmland noticed a series of subtle, ship-shaped anomalies in the soil. These were not visible on the surface, but their distinctive outline in the elevation data strongly suggested Viking ship burials, leading archaeologists to plan new investigations. Across the United States, enthusiasts combing through state geological survey data have identified countless potential Native American earthworks, ceremonial mounds, and old homestead sites previously lost to history, often reporting them to authorities for protection and study. This crowdsourced analysis is a force multiplier. It turns the global public into a distributed research network, amplifying the power of the technology exponentially. Every new pair of eyes on the data increases the chance of spotting a crucial feature a busy academic might have missed. But beyond the tangible discoveries lies something even more profound: a deepened public connection to our shared heritage. When a person can zoom in on their own county, find the faint traces of an ancient footpath leading from a spring, and recognize it as part of a larger story, history ceases to be abstract. It becomes personal, local, and alive. This open access movement fosters a sense of collective stewardship, inviting everyone to become not just consumers of history, but active contributors to its ongoing revelation. The story of our past is no longer written solely by experts in the field. It is now a collaborative narrative, pieced together by a worldwide community gazing into the same digital light. This technological wonder, however, arrives with a significant price tag. The cost of a single airborne LiDAR survey can easily reach into the hundreds of thousands of dollars, a figure that encompasses the specialized aircraft, the sophisticated laser scanner itself, the expert pilots, and the teams of data scientists required to process the immense torrent of information. This economic reality creates a profound challenge of access. The revolutionary tool for seeing the past is, for now, largely available only to well-funded academic institutions, government agencies, or projects backed by commercial partnerships. This can inadvertently create a map of discovery that favors certain regions of the world over others, where funding and infrastructure are more readily available. The story of our shared human past risks being told only from those places where the financial resources exist to illuminate it, leaving other chapters in the dark. It raises a vital question for the future of the field. How can this powerful lens be made more accessible to researchers and communities everywhere, ensuring a truly global understanding of our history? Alongside the question of cost comes an even more complex ethical dimension. The laser's eye reveals not just stones and soil, but profound responsibilities. When a scan uncovers the footprint of a vast, unknown city on land that is sacred to a living indigenous community, who decides what happens next, the technology presents a dilemma: to excavate or to preserve. The traditional impulse of archaeology has been to dig, to recover artifacts and data. Yet many communities today advocate for a different approach, one of stewardship and non-invasive study. They may view excavation as a disturbance, preferring that sites remain protected and whole, their stories safeguarded within the landscape itself. This perspective urges a shift from seeing sites as academic quarries to respecting them as active parts of cultural heritage and identity. Engaging with descendant communities from the very beginning of a project is no longer just a courtesy, it is an ethical imperative. It ensures that the process of discovery is collaborative, that traditional knowledge guides the interpretation, and that the community has a decisive voice in the care and future of their ancestors' legacy. These discoveries can also challenge long-held national stories or historical narratives. A LiDAR map might reveal evidence of a sophisticated society in a region previously described as empty or uncivilized before a certain date, directly contradicting established textbooks or political histories. Navigating this requires sensitivity and a commitment to following the evidence with respect for all involved. The goal becomes not to claim a discovery for one group over another, but to expand our collective understanding in a way that honors the complexity of the past and its living connections to the present. The laser, in its cold precision, does not solve these human challenges. Instead, it illuminates them with new urgency, forcing the field of archaeology to mature beyond pure technique and grapple with the economics of knowledge and the ethics of memory. It reminds us that the most difficult terrain to map is not the jungle floor, but the landscape of our own responsibilities to the past and to each other. The laser's gaze is now turning toward a new frontier, one that covers most of our planet, water. A specialized form of the technology, called Bathymetric LiDAR, is unlocking the secrets of submerged landscapes. While the standard airborne lasers use near-infrared light, which is absorbed by water, these advanced systems employ a powerful green laser. This specific wavelength can penetrate the surface, traveling tens of meters into coastal waters and clear lakes before reflecting back. The result is a simultaneous map of both the water's surface and the topography of the seafloor or lakebed beneath it. This capability is revolutionizing our understanding of human prehistory. For most of human existence during the ice ages, global sea levels were over 100 meters lower than they are today. Vast stretches of continental shelf that are now underwater were dry, fertile land, crisscrossed by rivers and likely teeming with life. These coastal plains were probably highways for ancient human migration and settlement, offering rich resources. As the glaciers melted and the seas rose, these landscapes and any evidence of the people who lived there were slowly drowned. Bathymetric LiDAR acts as a time machine for these lost worlds. By mapping these submerged shelves, researchers can reconstruct ancient river valleys, identify potential freshwater springs, and locate terraces that would have been ideal for camps or villages. It is the first step in finding the drowned footprints of our ancestors, offering clues to how we populated continents along now vanished coastlines. The search is already yielding results. In the Baltic Sea, scans have revealed the preserved remnants of ancient forests and river systems from thousands of years ago. In North America, similar work is charting the lost landscape of Beringia, the land bridge between continents, providing a new geographic context for one of humanity's great journeys. This technology does not just look back, it also looks outward. The same principles of laser mapping are being adapted for extraterrestrial exploration. Orbiters have already used LiDAR-like instruments to map the surfaces of Mars and the Moon in incredible detail, revealing ancient river valleys, lava tubes, and impact craters. The next phase, planetary archaeology, is a thrilling prospect. Future missions, whether robotic or human, could carry sophisticated ground-penetrating LiDAR systems. These tools could scan the Martian surface for unnatural geometric patterns or the subsurface for hidden caverns that might have offered shelter. They could map the lunar regolith for traces of early human exploration or even for artifacts from theoretical pre-human visits, a concept that stretches the imagination. This expansion of scope is profound. It demonstrates that the core idea of using light to reveal hidden structure is universal. The technology that finds a Maya causeway beneath a canopy can, in principle, find a lost outpost beneath Martian dust. It transforms LiDAR from a tool of Earth-bound history into a potential instrument for cosmic discovery. The quest to map what is hidden, it seems, has no boundary, pushing from the depths of our oceans to the silent surfaces of other worlds, forever driven by a simple pulse of light seeking the story written in the landscape. The data from these flights builds bridges between fields of study that once seemed worlds apart. This sixth principle is one of powerful fusion, where archaeology, ecology, and climate science converge on the same digital landscape. The laser's pulse does not discriminate between the ancient and the modern. It captures everything. For the archaeologist, the treasure is the ghostly footprint of a city. For the ecologist, the very same dataset is a goldmine of information about the living forest, detailing canopy structure, tree height, and overall biomass with astonishing precision. This creates a remarkable opportunity to see the long shadow of history on the present day. Researchers can now overlay the map of an ancient Maya agricultural terrace system onto a modern map of soil health or forest density. They can ask profound questions. Does the land still bear the signature of cultivation practiced 1,000 years ago? How have those ancient modifications affected which tree species thrive there today? This connection reveals that our environment is a living archive, its current state deeply influenced by choices made centuries prior. The fusion grows even more urgent when we consider climate. By studying how past civilizations interacted with their environment, especially during periods of strain, we gain invaluable context for our own future. The case of the Maya is a profound lesson. Their immense population was supported by a brilliant yet vulnerable system of water management. When researchers analyzed the LiDAR maps of their reservoirs and canals alongside climate records from lake sediments, a story of challenge emerges. Evidence suggests that extended periods of drier conditions, interspersed with intense rains, placed tremendous stress on that engineered system. The very infrastructure designed for stability may have become a point of fragility during extreme shifts. This is not just ancient history, it is a case study in resilience. By understanding the precise mechanisms of how an environmental change impacted a complex society, climate scientists can refine their models. They can better predict how modern communities, with their own intricate infrastructure, might respond to similar patterns of drought or deluge. The laser-scanned past becomes a testing ground for future scenarios. This interdisciplinary fusion transforms LiDAR from a tool of pure discovery into an instrument of profound relevance. It shows us that the story of a lost city is not locked in time, it is actively conversing with the present. The choices of ancient engineers are written in the health of a modern forest, and their challenges echo in our contemporary climate concerns. In this light, archaeology stops being a backward-looking pursuit and becomes a vital source of data for navigating our shared future, proving that the most important maps are those that chart the deep, enduring connections between humanity and its home. A causeway is more than a line of raised earth. It is a story of connection, of goods moving from farm to market, of families traveling to a festival, of messengers carrying news between distant rulers. The clean geometry of a LiDAR map gives us the structure, but the meaning comes from the human pulse that once animated it. Each subtle feature is a fossilized intention. A carefully leveled agricultural terrace is not just an efficient way to grow crops. It is the labor of generations, a father teaching his son how to shape the hillside to catch the rain, a community ensuring their children will be fed. A defensive wall, traced as a stark ridge in the data, speaks of a time of fear and preparation, of centuries watching from a parapet and a community finding safety within its embrace. The laser reveals the architecture of a society, but the lived experience within those walls remains a beautiful, complex mystery. This is where the archaeologist's work transforms from cartography to storytelling. With a grand stage now visible, they must write the script. They draw upon anthropology, the study of human cultures, to infer the social rhythms that filled these spaces. They consult historical accounts from neighboring regions, and they turn to the most intimate evidence of all, the objects left behind. A ground truthing team, guided to a precise platform by the LiDAR map, might uncover fragments of cooking pots telling us about daily meals. They might find a broken spindle wall, hinting at the textile work that occupied hands in the quiet hours. A cache of ceremonial figurines, carefully placed, opens a window into spiritual beliefs and ritual practice. LiDAR's true gift is that it allows us to ask profoundly better questions. Instead of wondering where to dig, we can now ask, why was this neighborhood built on this specific hillside? What does the layout of these homes suggest about family structure or social hierarchy? How did the design of this reservoir reflect their understanding of engineering and their relationship with the gods of rain? The technology does not hand us the answers, but it frames the inquiry with a clarity we have never possessed. It connects the monumental to the mundane, showing how the king's pyramid and the farmer's field were part of a single, interdependent world. This translation from data to narrative makes the past shockingly immediate. Those points of light in the digital cloud become the echoes of laughter in a courtyard, the smell of wood smoke from 1,000 hearths, the determined effort of a community shaping its destiny against the jungle, the desert, or the rolling plains. We are no longer just mapping lost cities, we are beginning to hear their forgotten voices. The maps drawn by light carry a quiet but undeniable power of correction. For centuries, the story of human civilization was often told through a narrow lens, one shaped by the perspectives and records of a handful of dominant cultures. Societies across the Americas, Southeast Asia, and Africa were frequently portrayed in outdated narratives as isolated, less complex, or somehow frozen in time before contact. These views, rooted in colonial-era assumptions, consistently underestimated the scale and sophistication of indigenous achievements. The data streaming from LiDAR surveys now acts as an impartial witness, providing irrefutable, physical evidence that challenges these long-held stories at their core. It is not offering an alternative interpretation, it is presenting the measurable truth of the landscape itself. Where explorers once saw empty wilderness, we now see the grid of a metropolis. Where historians described simple villages, the lasers reveal the fingerprints of master engineers. This technology does more than find lost cities. It recovers lost credit, forcing a global recalibration of how we understand our shared human past. The evidence is written in the geometry of the Earth. In the Amazon, the discovery of vast, patterned landscapes and enriched soils dismantles the persistent myth of a pristine, untamed forest incapable of supporting large societies. It shows us communities that actively cultivated and shaped their environment over generations, practicing a form of sustainable agroforestry on a monumental scale. In Southeast Asia, the hydraulic empire of Angkor, with its sprawling low-density urban form and colossal water management network, stands as a feat of engineering that rivaled any contemporary project in medieval Europe. The Maya world, revealed in its full, interconnected glory, displays an urban planning and agricultural intensity that matches the complexity of ancient Greece or Rome. These are not subjective comparisons of cultural value, they are objective assessments of societal scale, population density, and environmental manipulation. LiDAR provides the hard data, the kilometers of canals, the hectares of terraced fields, the precise coordinates of thousands of structures that make these conclusions inescapable. This shift from speculation to measurement is profoundly important. It moves the conversation from what was believed to what can be demonstrated. A history textbook that once described the Amazon as sparsely populated now must contend with maps showing hundreds of square kilometers of human-modified landscape. A narrative that framed the Maya collapse as a mysterious failure must now account for the evidence of a society that thrived in immense numbers for centuries through brilliant adaptation. LiDAR becomes a tool for historical justice precisely because it is neutral. Its lasers do not see culture, they see topography. It gives a voice to accomplishments that were marginalized not through argument but through the quiet authority of mapped reality. The civilizations it reveals are finally able to testify on their own behalf through the enduring marks they left on the land. This recalibration invites a more accurate and equitable understanding of human development. It shows that innovation and complex society were not the exclusive province of any one continent or culture, but emerged independently wherever people faced the challenge of building a life together. The drive to organize, to engineer, to create meaning in stone and soil is a universal human trait. By illuminating these parallel paths of achievement, LiDAR fosters a sense of shared heritage. It encourages us to see human history as a tapestry of many brilliant threads, rather than a single, linear story. The next great revelation may therefore be more than a city. It could be a fundamental insight into the diverse ways humanity has found to flourish, a lesson written not in words but in the silent, waiting shapes of the earth. The digital map becomes a doorway. This same LiDAR data that reveals a city's blueprint is now being used to build its walls, fill its plazas with virtual life, and invite the public inside. Through virtual and augmented reality, the point cloud transforms into an immersive world you can step into. Museums and research institutions are pioneering these experiences, where a visitor can don a headset and find themselves standing at the heart of a bustling ancient metropolis. One moment you are in a quiet gallery, the next you are gazing up at the towering central pyramid of a Maya city, its limestone facade painted in vibrant colors that time has long since washed away. You can hear the distant sounds of a marketplace, see the smoke from household hearths rising between thatched roofs, and follow a raised causeway as it stretches toward the horizon. This is not a passive view through a glass case, it is an active exploration, a chance to inhabit the scale and grandeur of a lost world. The emotional impact is profound. Reading about the size of Angkor's reservoirs is one thing, but standing on the virtual edge of that vast, shimmering barre, seeing its impossible scale stretch out before you, creates a visceral understanding no textbook ever could. It fosters a connection that is both intellectual and deeply personal, transforming abstract facts into a sense of place and presence. This technology democratizes wonder. It makes the thrill of discovery accessible to anyone, not just the archaeologist in the field. A student can navigate the corridors of a palace. A history enthusiast can examine the carvings on a virtual stela from every angle, and a family can explore a reconstructed neighborhood together. This hands-on engagement does more than entertain, it inspires. By letting people experience the past as a living, navigable space, it sparks curiosity in a powerful new way. It shows that history is not a list of dates, but a world to be explored, full of stories waiting to be understood. For a young person, that feeling of awe, of walking through a city that vanished centuries ago, can plant the seed for a lifelong passion in archaeology, engineering, or digital humanities. All of this immersive magic is built upon a foundation of meticulous accuracy, the precise spatial data captured by those airborne lasers. Every virtual step you take, every wall you see, is anchored to the real-world coordinates measured by a laser pulse. The fantasy of time travel is given bones of pure science, allowing us to explore not a guess, but a carefully reasoned reconstruction. This fusion of cutting-edge visualization with rigorous data is creating a new language for public education, one where we learn about the past not by being told, but by walking through its resurrected streets. Yet even this brilliant light has its boundaries. The laser's eye is powerful, but it is not a form of X-ray vision that can see through everything. It maps the surface of the Earth with astonishing fidelity, but it cannot peer through solid ground. A stone foundation lying just beneath the soil will be revealed, but a deeply buried artifact, a ceremonial offering placed in a pit, or the intricate layers of an ancient trash midden remain completely invisible to the airborne scan. These objects wait for the traditional tools of archaeology, the trowel and the brush, to tell their part of the story. Another profound limitation is time. The beautiful, clean model shows us a landscape frozen in a single, digital moment, but it contains almost no inherent chronological data. A perfectly rectangular platform glowing on the screen could be the foundation of a noble's house from 800 years ago, a communal storage building from 500 years later, or even the base of a modern forestry cabin. The laser pulse records only the shape and its position, not its age. Without physically visiting the site to examine construction methods or recover datable materials like charcoal or pottery, we cannot place that structure within the timeline of history. It is a map without dates. The technology can also struggle with the very composition of the Earth itself. Certain materials like very dense, wet clay or loose, dry sand dunes can absorb the laser pulses rather than reflecting them cleanly back to the sensor. In these environments, the digital terrain model may have gaps or fuzzy areas, like a photograph taken in a thick fog. The landscape becomes partially obscured, not by trees, but by the ground's own appetite for light. Most importantly, LiDAR records form, but it is silent on meaning and culture. It can show us the precise outline of a raised circular platform, but it cannot tell us if that space was used for ceremonial dances, for community gatherings, or for grinding grain. It reveals a network of straight roads, but not whether they were walked by traders carrying jade, by armies on the march, or by pilgrims heading to a sacred spring. The data provides the stage, but the actors, the script, and the emotions of the performance must be uncovered through other means. Recognizing these boundaries is not a criticism of the technology, it is the key to using it wisely. LiDAR is a revolutionary mapping tool, a way to ask spectacularly better questions of the past. It tells us with breathtaking clarity where things are and what shape they take. But the deeper human questions, the when, the how, and most compellingly, the why, those answers still rise from the patient, grounded work of interpretation. The laser gives us the map, but we must still walk the ground to hear the stories it holds. North of the great Mesoamerican cities, another monumental chapter of human history was written in soil. Across the river valleys and fertile plains of what is now the American Midwest and Southeast, ancient societies undertook projects of staggering scale, moving millions of baskets of earth by hand to shape their world. These were the mound builders, cultures like the Hopewell and later the Mississippians, whose great earthen pyramids and ceremonial plazas have long mystified observers. For generations, our understanding of places like Cahokia, near modern St. Louis, was fragmentary. We saw the surviving mounds, like the colossal 100-foot-tall Monk's Mound, as impressive but isolated monuments. The forest, farms, and urban sprawl that grew over these landscapes seemed to have erased the context, leaving these giants standing alone in history. Airborne laser scanning is now reuniting them with their lost world. By digitally stripping away the modern clutter, LiDAR is performing an act of archaeological restoration, revealing that these mounds were not solitary features. They were the architectural anchors of meticulously planned cities. At Cahokia, the scans have exposed the faint, ghostly outlines of dozens of additional smaller mounds, completely plowed flat and invisible on the ground. They have clarified the precise boundaries of vast central plazas, larger than many modern football fields where thousands might have gathered. Perhaps most poetically, the data has helped confirm the positions of great circles of massive wooden posts, often called wood hinges, that functioned as celestial calendars, marking the solstices and equinoxes with breathtaking precision. This is not just finding lost structures, it is recovering the blueprint of a metropolis, a planned urban environment where cosmology, governance, and daily life were woven into the very shape of the land. The revelation expands far beyond a single city's limits. The true power of the technology emerges when we view these centers not as isolated capitals, but as connected points in a vast cultural network. From the sky, researchers can trace alignments and sightlines between major mound complexes across hundreds of miles. A ceremonial platform at one site might be oriented to frame the sunrise on a specific day, a sunrise that would be seen directly over the central mound of a neighboring chiefdom 50 miles away. These are not coincidences, they are physical evidence of a shared worldview, a continent-wide web of cultural and likely political connection known as the Hopewell Interaction Sphere. The LiDAR maps show how processional roads or cleared avenues might have linked mound groups within a region, creating ritual pathways through the landscape. This data is systematically dismantling outdated notions that pre-Columbian North America was a wilderness sparsely dotted with simple villages. Instead, we see a landscape punctuated by sophisticated population centers, some with populations in the tens of thousands, engaged in long-distance trade that brought copper from the Great Lakes, mica from the Appalachians, and seashells from the Gulf of Mexico to these inland capitals. The earthen pyramids were the focal points of a vibrant, interconnected world of ceremony, astronomy, and exchange. This revised map does more than add dots, it draws the lines between them, revealing a narrative of social complexity and shared belief that flowed along the rivers and ridgetops of an ancient America, a story now being read from the subtle contours of the earth itself. This technological shift has fundamentally redefined the archaeologist's toolkit. The modern explorer now spends as much time in front of a high-resolution screen as they do in the field, their hands navigating complex software interfaces as deftly as they would handle a trowel. Mastery of Geographic Information Systems, or GIS, is no longer a specialty, it is a core requirement. These digital platforms are where the story begins, allowing them to layer LiDAR terrain models with soil maps, historical records, and decades of excavation data, creating a multidimensional portrait of the past. They must become fluent in the language of point cloud processing, learning to filter and classify billions of data points to separate the cultural signal from the natural noise. This new archaeologist is a hybrid, a field researcher with the soul of a data scientist. They ask questions of datasets as they once asked questions of the soil, using statistical analysis and spatial algorithms to detect patterns invisible to the naked eye. Yet, for all this technical transformation, the heart of the profession remains beautifully constant. Their ultimate mission is still that of the storyteller. LiDAR simply hands them a more detailed, more expansive manuscript than any previous generation could have dreamed of. Where they once had fragments of pottery and sections of a wall, they now have the complete urban plan. Their expertise is no longer focused solely on finding the story, but on interpreting a narrative written across hundreds of square kilometers. They must weave together the causeway and the canal, the grand plaza and the humble home platform, into a coherent tale of how a society functioned, flourished, and faced its challenges. The data provides the skeleton, but it is the archaeologist's insight, drawn from anthropology, ecology, and history, that breathes life into the bones. They transform sterile coordinates into a bustling marketplace, a quiet moment of ceremony, or a community's collective effort to harvest the rains. In this new era, the most important excavation does not happen in a trench, but in the space between data points, where human curiosity meets digital evidence to recover the echo of a lost world. From the skies, a technology of light has illuminated the shadows of our past, revealing that the maps of ancient human achievement were far too small. For generations, our textbooks sketched a world where civilization blossomed in a few familiar river valleys, while vast stretches of the planet were labeled as empty wilderness, waiting for history to arrive. The laser's impartial eye has corrected that vision. It has shown us that the wilderness was never truly wild, but a canvas upon which countless societies painted their own intricate designs. From the engineered forests of the Amazon to the hydraulic empire of Angkor and the interconnected metropolises of the Maya, we now see a planet humming with human ingenuity long before the modern era. This is not merely about adding new dots to an old map. It is about realizing the map itself was drawn on the wrong scale. The story of humanity is not a single thread, but a vibrant global tapestry, each thread representing a different way of building a world. Airborne laser scanning has done more than discover lost cities. It has fundamentally altered our perception of history's scale, complexity, and interconnectedness. We once measured civilizations by their grandest monuments, their pyramids and temples. Now we understand them by their systems, the quiet genius of a terraced field that fed 1,000 families, the subtle logic of a causeway that linked distant communities into a shared culture. This technology reveals the infrastructure of belief and cooperation, showing societies that managed continents, engineered landscapes, and built networks of trade and ideas that rivaled the complexity of our own. They were not primitive precursors to us, they were parallel innovators, solving the eternal human challenges of community, sustenance, and meaning in their own brilliant ways. Their legacy is written not in parchment, but in the very shape of the earth, a language we have only just learned to read. As we stand at this intersection of advanced technology and ancient wisdom, we are reminded that the story of humanity is still being written, with every laser pulse adding a new sentence. This partnership between the digital and the historical is a profound dialogue. We ask new questions of the past with our machines, and the past, in turn, asks new questions of us. It challenges our assumptions about progress and sustainability, about what it means to live in balance with a landscape. Each newly revealed city is a lesson, a case study in resilience, organization, and sometimes in vulnerability. The journey of discovery is far from over, and the next forgotten civilization may be waiting just beneath the next canopy, ready to be found and remembered. The lasers will keep flying, the data will keep flowing, and the quiet shapes in the earth will keep whispering their stories. Our task is to listen, to learn, and to redraw the map of human history once more, this time with the full, magnificent scale it deserves.